Thanksgiving is a holiday of warmth, family, and feasts. But sometimes, tradition hides shadows darker than we want to admit. In a small, forgotten town, there's a chilling tale whispered only in hushed tones. The Thanksgiving Poltergeist. A family gathered for dinner and was never seen again. Neighbors swore they heard screams through the walls, the sound of furniture dragging across the floor, and then, silence. When authorities arrived, the table was still set, food untouched, candles burned low, but the house was empty. No signs of escape, no signs of life, only claw marks on the inside of the locked doors. Was it madness, mass hysteria, or something far more sinister that fed on gratitude turned to horror? Tonight, we uncover the legend of the family that Thanksgiving swallowed whole. The story begins in a farmhouse that seemed to exist outside of time. Weathered wood groaned in protest with every gust of wind, and its windows reflected not just the outside world, but something darker, as if the house carried secrets of its own. Generations of families had celebrated Thanksgiving here, yet none stayed long. Those who rented the property often left after only one season, muttering vague excuses, avoiding questions. Locals whispered that the walls held memories, that plates rattled on their own, and shadows often lingered in corners long after everyone had left the room. For this family, however, it was tradition. They dismissed the warnings, eager to preserve their gathering in a place where their ancestors once feasted. On that fateful evening, the table was laid with care. A golden brown turkey sat steaming in the center, surrounded by bowls of potatoes, squash, and cranberry sauce that gleamed like blood under the dim light. The laughter was forced, but warm at first, filling the room with a fragile comfort. Then the change came. A sudden cold draft crawled through the dining room, extinguishing one candle after another until only two flickered weakly. The grandfather clock in the hall gave a shuddering groan and began ticking backward. Conversations faltered, forks clinked against plates, an unease crept in like a second guest at the table. And then, the footsteps. Slow, deliberate, they came from upstairs, crossing the floorboards one heavy thud at a time. The family exchanged nervous glances. Perhaps it was one of the children, but when the sound reached the stairs and descended towards them, every head turned, and no one was there. They tried to laugh it off, tried to eat again, but dread was already seated amongst them. The house had begun to stir. The family forced themselves to settle, clinking glasses in a nervous toast. But the air had shifted, heavier, colder, as though the very walls were leaning in to listen. Forks scraped plates without appetite. Each bite of food turned to ash in their mouths, though the dishes were warm and plentiful. Then came the first scream. It wasn't from any of them. A woman's voice wailed from the kitchen, sharp, shrill, and impossibly close, though the room beyond was empty. Pots clattered on the floor, and the faint sound of weeping drifted through the air vents, echoing into the dining room. The father rose to investigate, but the moment his hand touched the kitchen door, it slammed shut on its own, rattling the entire frame. The handle twisted violently, as if something inside clawed to get out. Suddenly, silence. The only sound was the slow tick of the grandfather clock, still running backward. The family sat frozen, listening, waiting. Then came the pounding. From the walls themselves, a rhythmic thud began. First faint, then louder, as though hundreds of fists were beating from within the wooden frame of the house. The lights flickered. One by one, the bulbs shattered. showering glass over the untouched feast. Only the dim glow of the fireplace remained, casting grotesque shadows across their terrified faces. The turkey, once steaming and golden, now oozed black liquid, dripping onto the table like ink. Panic surged. Someone bolted for the front door, wrenching at the knob, but it refused to turn. The deadbolt clicked back into place by itself. The house had locked them in. The laughter, the screams, the shadows, they were no longer guests. The house itself had joined the table. At first, the whispers were subtle, like a breeze rustling through autumn leaves. They sounded almost human, soft murmurs of thanks drifting across the dining room like smoke. The family shivered, huddling together, unsure if it was their imagination or something far older, far hungrier. Then the tone shifted. The whispers twisted into mocking chants, echoing off the walls, circling the family like predatory vultures. The mother clutched her children, whispering frantic prayers, while the shadows at the corners of the room seemed to stretch and writhe, reaching towards them. The eldest son, desperation overtaking fear, grabbed a candlestick and swung it into the darkness. His swing meant nothing, yet he was flung backwards as if struck by an invisible force. Panic set in, hearts hammering in sync with the rhythmic tapping that now came from the ceiling above. The air thickened, pressing against their lungs with every breath. Knives lifted from the table, floating in midair like predators circling prey, their blades glinting in the flickering candlelight. The turkey shifted, sliding unnaturally across the table as if pulled by unseen hands. Plates clattered to the floor, the sound echoing like gunfire. The family huddled closer, realizing they were no longer merely hosting a dinner. They were the meal. Shadows danced over their faces, twisting their reflections in the broken silverware. Every whisper now carried a warning. The laughter grew louder, deep, inhumane, a chorus that reverberated through the walls. It was not the house. It was something inside it. Something that had waited generations for this moment, feeding on the terror of these foolish enough to celebrate. In the flickering half-light, the family could only stare, paralyzed as the unseen force made itself known. This was a feast they would never leave. By the late hours of the night, neighbors noticed an eerie glow from the farmhouse, but no one answered their calls. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and lights flickered faintly, yet the house remained silent, as if holding its breath. Inside, the family's panic had escalated to terror. They could hear the creaking of the floorboards above, though upstairs was empty. Every attempt to leave the room ended in frustration. Doors jammed as if the wood itself resisted. Windows slammed shut, and even the fireplace roared violently. The walls seemed alive. Wallpaper peeled back to reveal wooden beams etched with strange ancient carvings, symbols none could recognize, lines that seemed to move when looked at directly. The family pressed together, realizing that something unseen was shaping the very house around them. Each shadow had become a predator, each creak a threat. The father, desperate, tried to smash a window using a chair as a battering ram. Instead of breaking, the glass rippled like water, swallowing the impact and revealing countless pale, eyeless faces pressed against the other side. The mother clutched the children, whispering futile prayers as the house seemed to shrink around them, compressing air, bending light, twisting reality. From the corners, strange whispers grew, low and malevolent, chanting a rhythm that seemed to sync with the pounding of their hearts. Furniture shifted on its own, scattering the untouched feast, and shadows crawled across the walls as though alive. By the time dawn approached, the farmhouse stood seemingly normal from the outside, a picture of rustic calm. Yet inside, the family's screams had been absorbed into the wood itself, echoing silently into the heart of the house. Every creak, every shadow, every whisper was a warning to those foolish enough to enter. This house had claimed its feast, and it would never let go. By morning, the farmhouse appeared quiet and undisturbed. Neighbors passing by saw smoke curling from the chimney and flickering candlelight through the windows. But when they knocked, no one answered. Inside, the table remained perfectly set. Turkey, potatoes, cranberry sauce, all untouched, as if nothing had happened. Yet the family was nowhere to be found. Investigators arrived, searching every room, every closet, and even the attic. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints, no bodies, only deep claw marks gouged into the wooden doors as though something had fought to escape. The air still carried a faint scent of smoke, and the silence seemed almost alive. Some claimed they could hear whispers echoing from the walls, soft but insistent, like a haunting lullaby of terror. Forks clinked faintly on the table by themselves, and shadows twisted across the walls as though dancing with invisible guests. The family had vanished, leaving behind only the echo of their fear. The farmhouse was eventually abandoned, boarded up and left to rot. It became a place of local legend, a house that waits, hungry, patient, eternal. Yet those brave enough to pass by on a quiet November night reported strange phenomena: candlelight glowing through cracks, soft whispers that vanished when approached, and the unmistakable sense that someone or something was watching. If you press your ear to the walls, some say you can hear it: the clinking of silverware, the soft echo of laughter, and the whispers of a family still trapped in their eternal Thanksgiving feast. The story of the Thanksgiving poltergeist persists, a chilling reminder that not every celebration ends in joy. And perhaps the next family to celebrate here will find themselves part of the feast as well, forever seated at a table that will never let them leave. And so, the legend of the Thanksgiving poltergeist lingers. A family vanished, a table left waiting, and a house that never truly sleeps. Was it the work of restless spirits bound to the land? Or did something older, something hungry, take its feast that night? Perhaps the next family who dares enter will find themselves seated at the very same table, never to leave again. If you enjoyed this story and want more chilling legends, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss what waits in the dark. Share this with someone who thinks Thanksgiving is just about turkey and gratitude. And as always, don't forget to look beyond the fog.